Is God trustworthy? Hi, I'm Sarah.
And I'm Mary Beth.
Join us as we seek to answer this question through wholehearted conversation.
Discover the wit and wisdom that comes from being anchored in Christ and connected to one another.
This is Trustworthy. Well, hello there, Mary Beth.
Guten Tag. What does that mean?
It means good day.
Oh, sweet. I got it right. Don't know why that popped into my head. Guten Tag.
Guten Tag to you. Maybe it's because we were talking about Huga.
Huga. I learned a new vocab word thanks to Sarah today.
You can pronounce it Huga or Huga, but you should be pursing your lips a little bit. Huga.
I thought it was Higgy, so I was way off.
When I read it, I say Higgy in my mind.
Yeah. What does it mean, Sarah? Why are we talking about it?
Ooh, it means cozy conviviality.
I like that word too.
Yeah. And it comes from, I think it's Norwegian. It comes from Scandinavia, but it's really popularized across cultures. And there are whole Pinterest pages dedicated to Huga.
Huga. I did it. Oh my gosh. I just did it again.
Ooh, there's probably Pinterest pages dedicated to hoagies too. We can, yeah.
Okay, let me get it right. Huga?
Yeah.
Huga.
Yeah.
But it's not like a phlegmy huh. It's just a
Huga.
Huga.
Very clean.
Okay.
Like IKEA.
It's very Scandinavian.
Yeah.
Yes.
So why are we talking about Huga? Well,
it's a vocabulary episode here on Trustworthy. No, I'm just kidding.
It's not. It's not. We are talking about the change of seasons. We are currently anticipating fall. It is not officially fall on the calendar yet, but it will be soon.
Close. Yeah.
Although by the time you listen to this, it will be fall on the calendar.
That's right.
Yeah.
And you have hopefully enjoyed lots of Huga with maybe a blanket or a fire. Or what's your favorite fall thing, Sarah?
I do like cozy sweaters and hoodies. And I do like a good pumpkin spice latte.
Oh, yeah. You're a pumpkin spice girl.
I am a pumpkin spice girl.
Confession, in our household, we brought out the oat milk pumpkin spice creamer in August. So we're having a challenge living in actual seasons in our house right now.
Well, I think Starbucks starts their pumpkin spice latte maybe even in August now. I'm not sure.
Yeah, it's kind of shameful, but we embrace it.
We do. I like it. I like pumpkin spice latte. However, that's a lot of calories.
Lots of sugar.
So one of the things that I like to do sometimes is I'll just sprinkle some pumpkin pie spice on top of my coffee that I make at home.
Yeah, I do that with my tea as well. Yeah. Or even just cinnamon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Gives you sort of that same
Huga
feeling. Yeah. Sweater weather.
Yeah. I'm all about coziness and comfortable things. So fall is my favorite season, actually. Not for those reasons, but it contributes to the whole ambiance.
Yeah.
Football, cooler temperatures. I'm here for all that. Are you familiar with Trey Kennedy's videos of the typical fall female transition? Or you're giving me a blank stare. Okay. No. There's this comedian named Trey Kennedy, and every year he's done it for the past, 6 or 7 years. He puts out these videos where it's like basic fall girls, and it's just the stereotype. Years ago when he first started it, it was the tall brown boots with the big flannel scarf and going to the pumpkin patch. They're hysterical. He has another one coming out.
Check those out.
Yeah. He gets a group of girls to do the video with him, and he himself puts on like a wig as if he is a basic fall
fall girl.
They're hilarious.
Yeah. As opposed to a fall guy. Nobody wants to be the fall guy.
But
yeah. All right. I like fall. It's actually probably my favorite season. and we just did put our decorations up recently, and we do fall decorations, not Halloween, just fall. And then around Halloween, I might add a jack-o'-lantern or something to my decor, but we keep it pretty low key. And then after Halloween, I get out my turkeys and all that sort of thing. So
you mark the seasons.
I do. I like
visually.
To mark. Yes, I do like to mark the seasons visually. It adds to my enjoyment of them.
Yeah.
The decorating is not for everybody. I get that. It's a lot of work. However, sometimes it's nice to even just buy a fall scented hand soap or put out a little hand towel that has a pumpkin on it. Just kind of marks the seasons. I also do other things to mark the seasons change. I switch my wardrobe out, get out my jeans and sweaters. It's very exciting.
Just making the boys try on all of their pants and things last night to see what fits, what size are they in.
Right.
When you have young children, it's very easy to mark the seasons because they grow so quickly.
They grow so quickly. Exactly.
These clothes from 3 months ago no longer fit you.
I always tried to buy the things too big and then with the hopes they would fit the next year. Sometimes that works. Sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes they just grow too quickly.
Yep.
Yeah. And it's a time for me to get my chimney clean, get ready for that. Just all sorts of fall things.
That's right.
Yeah. Harvest time for the garden.
Yeah. Y'all have quite the garden here. Can I tell a quick story about our garden?
Yeah.
It does tie into fall. I'm a terrible gardener, and we also did not put up any protections this year to protect our garden from the animals and elements and all those things. So basically nothing grew. We had a few snap peas early in the season and nothing grew except for our pumpkin vine.
Ooh.
We have a very small garden, so we just have one little vine. And it's been doing great. The flowers are opening every morning. Nothing is happening. No pumpkins are growing. We didn't know what was going on. Really wanted to grow a pumpkin to enter into the community fair. And I was like, sorry, we don't have any pumpkins. Then we discovered from someone that was out in our yard that we had a massive wasp's nest on the back of our shed. And I said to my son, I wonder if the wasps are why we don't have pumpkins. So we looked it up. Sure enough, wasps eat bees and other pollinators. So a week after we got rid of the wasp nest, we have 2 pumpkins growing.
Oh,
how about
they
that?
Finally got pollinated.
So there's your nature lesson. So we'll see if they can grow in time before it gets too cold. But yeah.
I like that story.
Thanks.
Yeah. When I think about the change of the seasons, I start to think about changing seasons in our lives and not necessarily what I'm going to drink, whether it's going to be a pumpkin spice latte or an iced coffee or whatever. True confession, for those listeners that don't know it, a large portion of my life is dedicated to the curation and consumption of coffee. It's my biggest hobby. Maybe.
You have a very fun, fancy coffee machine downstairs.
Yeah.
That can make kind of any type of coffee beverage you want, right? Except maybe iced. It doesn't do like iced stuff, right?
No, but you could brew the espresso and then pour it over ice. There's a whole science to cold brew. I've never really been an iced coffee fan. Actually, that's not true. If I'm in the mood, I'll enjoy an iced coffee, but it's got to be sweet and sugary, and I just don't need to do that.
Different experience.
Yeah, different experience. Yeah. But I drink hot coffee in all temperatures. People always look at me strangely. Why are you drinking hot coffee? It's like 95 degrees out. I don't know. I just am. My coffee maker. Yeah, that's a whole other story.
But the changing of seasons.
The changing of seasons. Yeah. So thinking about change is something that we spend quite a bit of time on as human beings, whether it just be summer into fall, fall into winter, winter into spring, or the times of our lives. So transitioning from high school to college to the working world, getting married, becoming a mother, raising children.
One job to the next job.
Yeah, one job to the next job, sending our children off. Mm-hmm. Maybe there's been a change in our family. Like I said, either through marriage or a birth of a child, or maybe we've lost a spouse, either through death or divorce, or maybe a child. Maybe our child's just gone off to college or gotten married, which comes with its own set of changes.
or you're going from young adult to midlife crisis, or midlife to retirement, and you're finally enjoying it. Who knows?
Oh, yeah. Retirement. Exactly. That's a new one for us.
Mm-hmm.
So I was thinking that there are a lot of similarities between changes of the season and the way we prepare for those, like the physical seasons, and changes in the seasons of our lives. Sometimes you can be upset about winter coming. The days are shorter, the sun is less, but you can also do some things to prepare for it. Sometimes we know changes are coming in our lives. Sometimes we don't know changes are coming in our lives.
It can be challenging. Some season changes, we look forward to them, right? And we want them to get here as soon as possible. Others we're dreading. Others, kind of like what you're saying, are completely unexpected and kind of show up. We don't feel prepared. Sometimes that leads to it being hard to let go of a previous season and embrace the new one.
I think that that's probably one of the more difficult things. Sometimes even when the change is expected, it's hard to let go of the old season.
Mm-hmm.
We can spend a lot of wasted time wishing for the past, living in the past, reliving our glory days, so to speak.
Yep. Like Uncle Rico and Napoleon Dynamite. Could throw a football over those hills.
Wow.
I always think of that.
That's so funny. I haven't thought about that movie for a while.
I love that movie.
Yeah. Now I want tater tots.
Sorry, you were on a very good thought trail there.
I was on a very good thought trail. And now I'm thinking about the tater tots from Land Hope and how delicious they are. Oh my goodness. Okay. That could be fall. Tater tots could be fall food.
Tater tots can be any season
Any
food.
season. Yeah, exactly. Although I don't recommend carrying them around in the pockets of your parachute or parachute. I don't know.
Parachute pants. Parachute pants. Yeah,
absolutely. Anyway, no, but being stuck in the glory days, reliving what we think are our best days, when really, and we have a lot of examples of this in scripture, what is coming is going to be our glory days. What we go through can lead us into really beautiful things and beautiful seasons of life. And I think it's appropriate to mourn the loss of something or someone. It's okay to look back with nostalgia on a past season of life. It's okay to get together with several thousand other people and sing at the top of your lungs.
That's right. I just did it a couple of days ago. I went to a concert for Dashboard Confessional, which is one of my favorite bands in college. And one of their songs, I mean, they were 20 years younger when they released this song, is about how we're not 21 yet. And the whole song is about, we want to be cool and we want to fit in and we want to do all these cool things. We're waiting for our life to begin. And so when he introduced the song at the concert, he's like, well, I have some news. We're not 21 anymore. And like all the 30 and 40-year-olds in the crowd were like laughing and cheering. But yeah, it's fun. It's fun to kind of go back and with the perspective you have now, looking back on that season of life, especially for college age, you're trying to figure so much out in your early 20s, like 18, 19, 20, 21. And the life perspective you have now and the other seasons you've gone through, it can be fun and helpful to look back. Maybe there were some things you really screwed up at that time in your life, or things that your perspective is so shifted because of how much you have grown and know now. And I think that's a great way to kind of look back and see benchmarks of how you've grown, what you've learned, what God has brought you through, good or bad, but not, like you're saying, not dwelling on the past, but appreciating what you've been through.
One could say that it's important to remember what we've been through. And like you said, what God has brought us through. I think that can inform the future. If we've been able to get through a season of life intact, then perhaps God will also carry us through this next season And by the way, it's not a perhaps, it's an absolute.
Mm-hmm.
He
Mm-hmm.
absolutely will. Yeah, Ecclesiastes 3:1. There's a time for everything and a season for every activity under the heavens. And I always love in Isaiah 43:18, forget the former things. Do not dwell on the past. See, I am doing a new thing. Now it springs up. Do you not perceive it? I am making a way in the wilderness and streams in the wasteland. And that in particular speaks to looking forward to change when you're going through a difficult time. The promise that God gives, look, I'm doing something new. Like don't dwell on the past. Hey listeners, Mary Beth and I need your help. We would like to have your input for our Thankful Thanksgiving Gratitude episode. And maybe some input on a better title for that one. Anyway, drop us a line and tell us who or what you're thankful for this fall. Talk to you soon.
I'm just thinking about this as you read this out loud. And I hope you know the answer to this because I don't. The timing of Isaiah when that was written, that was well after Hannah.
Yeah, so Isaiah was the prophets who came after King David.
Yeah.
So we had
And
the judges,
Samuel's
and then
David's
we had the
grandfather.
kings, and then we had, Samuel anointed David.
Oh, why am I thinking he was okay? Wait, who was
You're
David's
thinking-
grandfather?
No, you're thinking Obed. You're thinking Naomi.
Oh, yeah. I was going down the other path.
The
in my
other path.
brain.
Yes. No,
Okay.
that's okay. Yeah.
Well, maybe we should revisit the story of
I
Hannah.
think we should. We should revisit the story.
And
of
I should
Hannah.
revisit my Old Testament to get all my facts right.
Well, in all fairness, going back, dwelling on the past, we did discuss both Naomi and Hannah as object lessons for
Yes.
women that lived through some changes, but we ultimately chose Hannah. And I think it is interesting, actually, that they're both related to David.
Mm-hmm.
Hannah was childless for years. I'm not sure if we know how long. We may, but right now I don't know off the top of my head. But she was the wife of Elkanah, I believe, and she longed for a child. And it was even worse than just that. The other wife, who had many children,
Mm-hmm.
tormented her, made fun of her. And the reason why was jealousy. I mean, boy, I tell you, who needs to watch the soaps on TV?
There's plenty of drama.
There's plenty of drama in the Bible.
Any place there are humans, there's bound to be some drama.
Yes, exactly. Peninnah was the other wife. Don't know how to pronounce it, but she had children. Hannah had none. I'm going to read from 1 Samuel 1:3. Year after year, this man, Elkanah, which is the husband, went up from his town to worship and sacrifice to the Lord Almighty at Shiloh, where Hophni and Phinehas, the two sons of Eli, were priests of the Lord. Whenever the day came for Elkanah to sacrifice, he would give portions of the meat to his wife Peninnah and to all her sons and daughters. But to Hannah, he gave a double portion because he loved her, and the Lord had closed her womb. Because the Lord had closed Hannah's womb, her rival kept provoking her in order to irritate her. This went on year after year.
That's a long season.
That is a very long season.
Long season.
Her husband would say, "Why are you crying? Why don't you eat? Don't I mean more to you than all these sons?" Boy, there's a question when a husband asks the wife, "Don't I mean more to you than 10 sons?" I'm just going to leave that one right there. I don't know if I'm prepared to discuss that. But then she goes in her deep anguish and she prays and she makes a vow. She says, "Lord Almighty, if you will only look on your servant's misery and remember me and not forget your servant, but give her a son, then I will give him to the Lord for all the days of his life, and no razor will ever be used on his head." And there again, she faced more trouble because Eli sees her and thinks that she's drunk because she's not praying out loud. But then she shares the prayer with him and he prays. And we know what happens next. They go home and she gets pregnant and she gives birth to Samuel. Then comes a new season for Hannah. She's at home with Samuel, taking care of him, nursing him, and then weaning him. And then she follows through. And she takes him to the temple to live with Eli. That's another season.
Mm-hmm.
Saying goodbye to your child.
I wonder, based on how she prayed for the child, how that helped her mindset, knowing that if she was promising to dedicate her child to the Lord, that she would have to give him up.
Yeah.
At a pretty early age.
I think so. I have a feeling it was like 3 or 5 or something, like pretty young.
Yeah.
Which is mind-boggling to me because this is a totally different time that we're living in.
Sure. Just thinking about how did she prepare for that season? She had waited so long and desired so much to have a child. And then it was just a few years that she had with her son before he had to go. I mean, he didn't die, but he wasn't living with her anymore. He wasn't growing up in her house anymore.
And then the story talks about how she makes him a set of clothes every year. And I think about her at home, far away from her child, working diligently on these clothes and just thinking like how much love was in every single stitch and how she's still pouring into his life, even though they're absent from each other. So that is definitely a woman that we can look at and see how she had different seasons in her life and truly embraced each one. I'm sure that there were days that she was sad about the things that had happened in the past, but God had been faithful to her. And so she was faithful to the Lord. And so she followed through. I think that's a good lesson for us because God is the same. Jesus Christ is the same yesterday, today, and forever. Hebrews 13:8. We know God doesn't change. We know he will be faithful to us through these transitions, these seasons. But what can we do? Knowing that change is going to come and that sometimes it's welcome, sometimes it's not, sometimes it's unexpected. Is there anything that we can do? Or what should we do?
It's interesting. The character of God does not change. Who he is does not change. Yet he has built change into his creation. He's the one that established the seasons in nature, the daylight, the darkness, day and night. There is change that he has intentionally brought into our experience as humans, but he himself is the steadfast. I mean, I think about Revelation 21:5. He who was seated on the throne said, I am making everything new. Then he said, write this down, for these words are trustworthy and true. And so part of that, when I'm processing change, is looking forward. Maybe if Hannah was holding out hope for the future, it's looking forward saying, we know the end result here. We know that God will be restoring and making all things new and that there is change involved in that. And so we don't have to fear the change, but how do we go into those seasons well prepared, right? To trust him, knowing that even though he doesn't change, the circumstances and the seasons are changing. What are ways we can prepare for that?
I think there's practical ways you can prepare, like the nuts and bolts sort of stuff, which I'm really into, the mechanics of everything. But I also think it's attitude too. How are we going to anticipate change? Are we going to be like, oh, great, just as soon as I get this figured out, something changes again? That's going to make us feel like a victim of our circumstances. Or if we approach things like, oh, well, this is going to be, I wonder what God is going to do. I'm excited about this new chapter. I can't wait to see what's going to happen tomorrow. We know that God's mercies are new every morning, and it could be a brand new thing tomorrow. Shockingly, there's a proverb that accurately describes this, Mary Beth. I love the Proverbs. If you all didn't know that, well, you should by now. Proverbs 15:15 says, all the days of the oppressed are wretched, but the cheerful heart has a continual feast. And I think about that. If I'm oppressed, if I perceive that I'm oppressed and that change is, the world's just out to get me, and anything that changes is just messing up my perfectly curated, controlled world, which is a complete joke, but I'm going to be pretty wretched. But if I have a cheerful heart and I'm looking forward with anticipation, then life is a continual feast of adventure and excitement.
And that it's not conditional on our circumstances.
Correct.
Because there are very hard seasons that we go through. But what you're saying is what is the posture of our heart? What is our focus? Are we dwelling on the hard? Many, many times in scripture, God tells us there will be suffering, there will be hardship. But he does not just say that and then drop the mic.
Yeah.
He always provides a way to endure, to sustain, to grow.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the other parts of scripture where this cheerful heart concept is mentioned, I think about instructions on giving. God loves a cheerful giver. I think there are seasons of life where maybe my budget was stretched. Do I have a negative attitude about that? Do I have a negative attitude about, I don't know that I can really be generous right now? Yes, we can always be generous.
We can always be generous.
What's the attitude of our heart? Is it being selfish and trying, like you're saying, to control everything that we can't control anyway? Or are we living in the freedom that God is not changing? He has the end goal in mind. It is just a season. And I think on the flip side, during good seasons, there can be a tendency to want to hold on to it and stop. We don't want that season to end. So how do we kind of deal with and prepare when we know a good season is ending?
Yeah.
Do you have thoughts on that? Wise Sarah?
Well, I don't know if I have any profound thoughts, but I have something that I've done in the past. Sometimes you know that something is coming to an end. Could be the last day of summer camp with your friends. Could be the last trip to the beach. Could be the last time you close the door of a house that you're moving out of. Saying goodbye to a relationship. Holding a loved one's hand before they leave this earthly place. And I think back to, in my own life, the times that I've been in those situations, and I've spent, I don't know if I guess it's just mental energy or intention on marking that specific time, all the senses, the thoughts, the sights, the sounds, the smells, the feelings, and everything, trying to put a pin in the timeline. Mm-hmm. When I look back on something that's sad or something that was good that is now gone, I can close my eyes and I can take myself back to that time. I think about sitting beside my grandmother's bedside in the days or hours before she went to be with the Lord, singing to her and reciting poetry. And it was a poem that we both loved. Even when she couldn't really talk anymore, I knew that she was still enjoying me reciting that. I don't love to think of my grandmother that ill, but I think about how precious that time was and how that poetry signified a long relationship that she and I had, with an appreciation for this particular poet. And so there's so much more behind it, but have that moment in time. Just like the last days of summer, I recently went to the beach just for a few hours because I just needed the sound of the waves coming in and out, the water, the smells. Yes, the ice cream, the sand between my toes. I just needed to hang on to that. And then that's okay.
Well, I think the common thread through all of those examples is being present in the current season and kind of soaking that up while you're in it and not dwelling on the what's coming next. I was talking to a friend yesterday who has moved all over the country for work. And she said she's had to kind of learn how to not live thinking about the next move, but to actually be present where she is. That is the season she's in, and she doesn't want to waste that season and that opportunity and just digging deep where she is, even if it's only for a year or two. And I think that's part of the helpful mentality is there's the duality of we want to prepare well and lay a good foundation for the next, whatever next season is coming, right? I mean, Proverbs also talks about that. The wise store up choice food and olive oil, but fools gulp theirs down. So there is wisdom in preparation.
Yes. But
we don't want to always be looking toward the next thing because we'll miss out on what the Lord is doing right now and what the foundation we might be building for the next season could be. There's so much that we're unaware of, right? That's going on, that God is doing, that is happening, that God is preparing for us. And so it's how do we work out both of those things? Well, actually, there's three things if we really think about it. How do we not look too much at the past? How do we live in the present well? And how do we not focus too much on the future?
I don't know. That's too overwhelming.
It's a lot.
I just want to have the sand between my toes and the waves. You were mentioning, you're talking about the wise store up choice food and olive oil. And then we were also talking about not holding on too tightly. There's always a soundtrack in my head and thinking of that great song by 38 Special, Hold On Loosely, Don't Let Go. If you cling too tight, you might lose control. I also think about one of my favorite financial gurus, Dave Ramsey. When he talks about giving, he always talks about having your hand open. Your hand is open to receive blessings, but the money can flow out too. So we want to be generous, not just with our money, but with our time and with ourselves, taking that time. Like there was a million things that I could have done that day besides be in the car for almost 4 hours to be on the beach for an hour. That 5-hour block of time, I could have done other things, but I needed that.
Mm-hmm.
So I was generous with myself. And it gave me back something that I really can't quantify. I can't really put it into words. I'm trying to. If you think about that with the changes that are coming, yes, prepare. Make sure you have a savings account. Make sure you have enough margin in your life so that you can take a nap or be able to anticipate if someone calls you last minute, hey, can you do this? You make sure that you have a lot of margin with your children, that you're not just correcting them all the time, but that you're encouraging them too. 5.6 positive things to every negative. Put things into the bank, whether it be food, money, relationships, encouragement, so that when those changes come, you're more prepared. And of course, your time with the Lord.
Yeah.
Because the more anchored we are, the more focused we are on what he says in his word, the easier it's going to be for us to handle the changes that are coming, because then we won't feel alone.
There's such a push and pull in our culture to always be doing. And there are lots of good things we should be doing. We've talked about it before on other episodes. We need to be up and doing.
Yeah.
But just that very first verse you read from Ecclesiastes, like go read Ecclesiastes, there's a time for rest. There's a time for calm.
There is a time for rest.
And so we're navigating this just as much as all of you are that are listening to this. We don't have a perfect system figured out, but it's telling ourselves and reteaching ourselves these truths from scripture that, okay, God is not changing. Seasons are changing. It can be good. It can be hard. It can be exciting. It can be devastating. All of those things can be true, and God is still good, and he is still faithful.
Yeah.
And so how do we walk through all of that, trusting him, but savoring it? It's, it's a lot, but at the same time, it's zoom out to that big picture that we're not in control anyway. And so we can just let go of some of that.
So to take us back to the beginning of the episode, huga, it actually stems from the word huja. I don't even know how to pronounce that. The basic meaning is to be or to think. Whether you're actually putting on a blanket and a cup of hot chocolate or a pumpkin spice latte or a tea and sitting by the fire, or if you're just approaching the changes in life from that willingness to just sort of let things happen. See, I even buck against that. I can't. Hard. I'm like, no, I've got to like control things. I have to be ready.
We can't just watch life go by, but we also can't be overactive thinking we have to do it all ourselves and do it all the time. This is tough stuff, man.
It is. It is.
This is, I mean, but I do think this is why God gave us seasons.
I think you're right.
Because if he did not, we would just run ourselves into the ground, right? Either from lack of action or overaction. He gives us these stop turn points.
The sowing and reaping, which is also part of the change of the seasons, the time for sowing, time for harvesting. I think about that. As fall, we come into harvest time. It would be a really interesting experiment for us to sort of look around in our lives and see what type of crop we're harvesting. Are we harvesting things that we are enjoying the fruits of? Or are there maybe some things in our lives that are bearing rotten fruit or weeds, or however you want to look at it, wherever you want your analogy to go?
Yeah.
A lighthearted approach. Okay, so in this last season of my life, what am I reaping now?
Mm-hmm.
And maybe what do I want to reap in my next season of life? So what can I be sowing now in this one? I know for me, I'm going to enjoy the transition into fall, and then I'm going to enjoy the transition to Christmas, and then I'm going to enjoy the transition to winter. I have looked forward to winter because it brings a sense of rest. Lots of jigsaw puzzles, fires, reading.
A little slower pace.
A little slower pace to the frenetic summer and fall.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Mary Beth, I've got one question for you.
Okay.
Are you a sweatshirt or a sweater person?
My recent purchases would say sweater, because I did a whole closet clean out. I'm trying to dress more like a grown-up. Wear sweaters instead of
which is totally overrated, by the way.
So my default would be a hoodie or a sweatshirt, but I'm trying to just find the most comfortable sweater so that I can lean more into sweaters.
Okay. Sounds good to me. I'm also a hoodie person, but I aspire.
We're just trying to be grown-ups.
Just trying to be grown-ups. Okay, well, when you hear this, visit our Instagram page. Tell us whether you're a hoodie or a sweater person.
That's right. Are you pumpkin spice or anti-pumpkin spice?
Or are you, yes, exactly. Are you pumpkin spice or anti-pumpkin spice?
You can always email us. The email address is listen@trustworthypodcast.com. And we're on Instagram @ThisIsTrustworthy.
All right. Until next time, stay cozy.
Hooga. Hey y'all, Mary Beth here. Sarah and I are so glad that you chose to listen to our podcast. And while we think that we're awesome friends to have, we just wanted to clarify that we are not mental health professionals and want you to know that this podcast should not take the place of any paid professional advice.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for listening. If you like to hear our podcast and you wonder how to get more of them, just click the subscribe button and your app will tell you when we release a new podcast. Thanks for listening.